began with the numbers for the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Dr. Trefor Murphy, founder and CEO of Cooper Fitch. Morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Brandy.
Let's start with what we saw in 2024 before we dig into your outlook, because there's a lot of numbers here. What did we see, UAE and Saudi, last year?
So in the UAE, we saw about 71% of organizations paying out bonuses, with the big winners being consulting, aviation, and a bit of a tech play there as well.
Saudi?
Saudi, slightly higher, I think about 72%. Thereabouts the same. Slightly different mix of winners there, but a lot on the investment management. The banking side performed very, very well that year as well. And at the beginning of real estate kind of high bonus pool payout.
Let's have a look at what we're likely to see this year, because you have gone into quite some detail in these two reports. We'll start with the UAE, where you say we've got a bit more optimism.
Yeah, so slight increase on the overall, jumping 1% to 72%. In Saudi Arabia, 78%. So a good increase there in Saudi Arabia. So in the overall in the UAE, so the companies paying out 1 to 2 months bonuses, 43%, and they're due to be paid this month, next month. And then 3 to 5 months salary, 23% of organizations, and 6 months plus, 5% of organizations in the UAE.
Right, and that's the interesting bit, or one of the big differences between Saudi and the UAE that really comes out in these numbers. We've got a lot in the UAE that do still seem to be still paying that basic 1 month bonus regardless.
Yes, yeah, there's a significant difference in the 3 to 5 months and 6 months plus in Saudi versus UAE. Look, I think we've spoken before about salaries, and we're having a weighted average of salaries of flat for 2025. The expectation was that bonuses would grow to support, more performance-led activities, whether it's individual or company performances. That's at 71 going to 72 for the UAE as an overall percentage is still reasonably flat. We would have expected to be more. We would have expected more organizations to go from the 1 to 2 month payout to the 3 to 5 month payout. And the 6 month plus payout at 5% in the UAE, as it compares to, I think, 11% in Saudi Arabia, is still quite a big gap there.
Okay, so we expected to see bigger bonuses in the UAE. Why do you think we're not?
I think it's. I think for the most part, it's down to some of the contributing factors that are around salaries and costs, cost of business increasing, significant movement of people into the UAE, particularly UAE rather than Saudi, and that's probably why there's such a gap there. You go to Saudi under a work visa, you come here, and you still have the opportunity to gain gainful employment. So I think costs, increased population, all of a factor to play. Some organizations not doing as well as they maybe did in 2023 as well. So that's always a factor. I mean, annual performance bonuses or STIPs are typically paid a percentage based on company performance and then a percentage based on department or individual performance.
Can we boil it down into less words? And is there a factor of companies just don't have to?
Well, if you want to retain great talent, you always have to be looking at how you retain great talent. If your talent is, and again, we saw the bonus pool for leaders versus mid-management versus individual contributors, quite a big gap there in terms of how they're paid. So, look, I think organizations always need to look after the organization. There is maybe a little bit of organizations that feel that they're in a very strong, dominant position and don't need to pay bonuses anymore. That's quite short-term thinking, though, I think.
The underperformance is also interesting. We look out the window, we look at the traffic, it feels like everything humming, but is that not necessarily translating into business performance?
No, we don't think so. No, and you have had really good growth numbers around job creation, etc.
But there's more competition.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean, yes, of course, it's a contributing factor to how busy we all are, but our organizations actually generating growth in revenue. Is that dropping to EBITDA? Are they very profitable? Are they competing well, either locally or globally? Always not necessarily related.
Let's have a look at Saudi. A third of companies granting between 3 and 4 months bonuses.
Yeah.
So moving out of the 1 to 2 month we see as the majority in the UAE to further down. Why is that?
Probably Saudi in a position where it has to retain talent. There's a critical need for certain skill sets there. So there's a real need rather than maybe a desire, which is maybe more in line with the UAE. So I think, and yet a lot of those organizations haven't hit their kind of the profitability levels yet, but they know they need to keep certain mid-management and particularly senior leaders in the organization for them to get to their 1, 2, 3 or 5 year plans.
And yet just under a quarter of the Saudi employers that you spoke to said they weren't going to be paying a bonus at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's probably reasonably in line with the UAE as well. I think it's about 23% in the UAE will not pay any bonuses. 8% of organizations have no bonus structure in place in the UAE. So some don't see bonus as an effective way of rewarding, and others who have a bonus structure in place are not paying bonuses. So again, unusual, maybe slightly more unusual in Saudi that it's nearly as high as the UAE. But organizations they've got cost pressures. There's a lot of pressure on them to do well, hit revenue and hit EBITDA numbers.
Is there a preference for bonuses rather than wage increases still in both countries?
Yeah, I think we would have spoken about that when we released the salary guide, that we thought okay, so salaries remain flat, bonuses will pick up some of that slack, and that hasn't happened. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to how much money the organization that you work for has in profit at the end of the day to be able to pay some bonus, no bonus, or high bonuses.
Trevor, thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Trefor Murphy, founder and CEO of Cooper Fitch, in with 2 bonus reports, one for the UAE and one for Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Brandy.